Good morning on what is a surprisingly mild, bright but changeable day. It is Tuesday the 21st of October and I'm in the reading up a nice hot cup of tea and a box to continue unboxing. And what I've got in here is a copy of The Complete Warwalks by Richard Holmes, British Battles from Hastings to Normandy. Complete Warwalks, British Battles from Hastings to Normandy by Richard Holmes, both best-selling books of the series in one volume. In Complete Warwalks, renowned historian Richard Holmes takes us on a fascinating journey through time to visit battlefields in Britain, northern France and Belgium, vividly recreating the atmosphere of their bloody and turbulent history. Dates such as 1066 and the battle names such as Waterloo and Dunkirk may strike a chord of familiar nostalgia, but the details of the historic events associated with them often remain vague or forgotten. From medieval Britain to the end of the Second World War, 12 battles including Hastings, Agincourt, Bosworth and the Somme were chosen by Richard Holmes for their historical and political importance, representing such major wars as the Wars of the Roses, the English Civil War, the Napoleonic Wars and First and Second World Wars. Many of these battles have created their own enduring mythology as a result of far-reaching consequences, and many of these decisive campaigns have battlefields that remain striking to this day. With his expert knowledge of weapons and warfare and using specially commissioned maps, Richard Holmes provides a clear picture of the events that led up to each battle, the conflicts themselves and the people who fought them. Using practical views of the field, he travels the battlefields as they exist today, pointing out the places of interest, paying tribute to those who fought there, and bringing history to life. So, this is one of the two books. The other one was I'm trying to do which I picked up on my recent trip to Wolverton. Now, Wolverton sits just outside Milton Keynes, and twice a year it hosts a convention called Concrete Cow, a one-day affair, really worth going to. Very good little convention. You get plenty of good games, and it's a nice event to catch up with people. And it takes place in the community centre there, and because of the way the community centre was built, it's part of a complex that includes a supermarket, and the local council would have gone, yes, you can have a supermarket, but you also need to build these buildings as well, which have been all part of the planning and so on. So that included the community centre and some shops. One of the shops is a very good second-hand book shop, which is what I go to every time, spend half an hour in there at my lunchtime and check to see what is what. Now, I could have spent quite a lot of money this time, but thought, no, I don't have the space. Basically I've got so many books. But I did pick this up because it's The Complete Warwalks by Richard Holmes, based on the BBC One television series from 1996-1997. Sadly, Richard Holmes is a noted military historian, died in 2011, but you can find the series online on the BBC and so on. It's worth watching, where he literally walks the battlefields and just talks about them, and it's really fascinating. Oddly, this is a piece of cardboard in there. I don't know why. They're large index card. So I thought, definitely grab this. This is worth reading, as I really remembered and liked the television series a lot. So there's the contents page, and then you've got the introduction. Which covers things like basically why he chose the battles, the changing weaponry of war, and the changing style of command, taking all of these into account. So that gives a really good, solid introduction as to why, why the book, why the battlefields, and so on. And then we've got key to the symbols that are going to be used throughout. Now, one of the things that this book does, the television series didn't, and that was the point of the television series, was that it includes maps. The television series doesn't, because he wanted to give the battle from this perspective of someone, at ground level, rather than seeing an overview. So we start off with Hastings, arguably one of the, essentially the, most important battles in British history, because it changed the nature of the country. I mean, all these battles listed in this book are important, but sort of like without without Battle of Hastings, you know, we would be a very different country. So and it's kind of remember that essentially that the, you know, there's the map and just how small this kind of battle is in comparison to modern battles. And so we're going through, just talking about the battle and so on. I mean, I'm just flipping through. So each section is going to basically start off with the background and the causes. So here we're talking about the causes of the Norman invasion, changes in battlefield tactics at the time. You know, there would have been basically different tactics used by both sides, different technologies, the arms and armour, the nature of the actual fighting men on the battlefield, and then looking at the campaign and battle. So, you know, the fact that Harold built Togsvig at I think that's the correct name. I just trying to remember. At Stamford Bridge, just days previously. As you can see, it's a full campaign. I mean, the thing is, it's sort of like, you know, for the Saxons, it's a full campaign there. Whereas, you know, just for William, it's of an entirely different nature. It's a little bit, I say, easier. I mean, it's not so it doesn't take such a large toll on the endurance, as it were. So when we also get the view of the field, so this is the bit where he essentially walks the field, looks it over, looks at the battle. And I mean, the thing is, it's sort of like, you know, I mean, that's just one battle, Hastings, and that's a town that essentially kind of doesn't quite so revel in the battle. It's basically it's such an important part of its culture and its history. And then we move on to Agincourt, battle against the French, and it's doing the same kind of format. And we've got the overview of the campaign itself. And if I'm almost wish this I sort of like, you know, I had a hardback edition of this, complete with colour illustrations rather than the black and white, you know, to see these in glorious colour. And now we've got the battle lines drawn up, sort of just basically famously, sort of essentially between the two areas of woods. And then we move on to Bosworth and the War of the Roses. Basically just and then you've got expanded maps, essentially as the battle itself changed, and an overview there of the site. And then moving on at almost 250 years or so to the English Civil War. and then switch across to Ireland for the Boyne, a much more controversial battle still, which repercussions continue to this day, to be fair, in Northern Irish politics. Leap further forward to Waterloo, and the final stand of Napoleon. Generally big bogeyman of the late 18th and early 19th century. Basically as essentially ultimately Emperor of France, and would be conqueror. And then literally basically just jumping 99 years into the First World War, the opening battles of the First World War, the Great War. And these are the battles that sort of took place before the Allied and Allied forces and German forces essentially entrenched themselves along the battle lines the best part of 4 years. So they're a bit more flexible and so on. Essentially, there's a lot more movement and so on than you would get in the trenches. And we have an overview of the Somme again. And all of these are very different, but all the battles in the book are different. And even just moving forward another 20 years to Arras, this really is the fall of France and the German Blitzkrieg invasion in 1940. Essentially the application of entirely new tactics and and relatively new technology, of course, in a way that had never been seen before, and just proved how incapable the British Army was of withstanding them at that point. And then similarly, very quickly, Dunkirk, and just how just really looking at the operation there to get the men off the beaches. I mean, it's another point of another battle with its own mythology and so on. Essentially, I mean, what with the boats being sent out, and it becoming no longer a military operation, but in part a civilian operation. That in which small boat owners participated. Similarly, I mean, essentially, very much, you've got a mixture of civilian and military involvement in the Blitz, of course. This essentially the night offensive, essentially to bomb the country into submission. That essentially it would pulverize large sections of our cities. And this is essentially at the same time it was being done to Germany as well. But again, this focuses upon British battles and battles that sort of like directly affect Britain. So move on to operations in 1944, post the Normandy landings. Basically, the efforts to break out of the pocket formed by during the initial days of the invasion, and push forward, driving the Germans back. So that brings the book to a close. You've got a list of further reading, acknowledgements, and an index. And picture credits at the end. So, Richard Holmes' Complete Warwalks. I think you can find a copy of that. That's probably worth picking up if you're interested in any of these battles, or just good reading. And if not that, do find the television series, because that's really worth watching. Really worth a really good television series. Anyway, in the meantime, I do hope you enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you did, then please do click on the like button down below. And if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to get more unboxings in the Nook, where you'll see me out here with a box typically containing a role-playing game, role-playing supplement, or role-playing scenario, or in this case, a book about British military history and the battle, some of the notable battles that have been fought. Which I will then, unbox and talk about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook, and we'll be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.